I find it very interesting that you exchange opinions with them. And even sometimes I allow myself to say, I am not speaking to you now as a teacher, but as a human being who has experience in this. And my opinion, it is just my opinion. It's not worth, well, it's worth of you listen, but it's not the opinion, right? Is this about this subject? I like to take the juice out of that buzz.
Exactly. So I came into the room. It was definitely, they were all very well-mannered, self-directed students. And there was this very sweet buzz, like several little partner conversations across the room about the election. And it was just so endearing to see. These were 9th and 10th grade age students, so about 15 and 16, to really see them engaged in that. And then the teacher started the lesson, and this is a student teacher, right? And he started the lesson. He asked if the phones had been put away. And then he started the lesson about why was a World War II a great war, right? So there was a preconceived, that he had a big idea. He had a big idea. And let me see that. And that's fine, but it was so jolting. Okay, so now I'm a supervising leader in my program, and I'm in the class, and I just dropped in. Okay, so I wasn't prepared to be there for the day, but it was such an interesting experience, kind of being in the classroom, hearing this buzz that was so related to the election in the United States that's going on right now. And then all of a sudden, bam, change the subject. And because the students are wanting to be cooperative, and because this student the student teacher has a lot of natural authority and competence in history, there was a willingness to go along with the plan. But it was like a missed opportunity. Yeah. Now, what was interesting for me as I'm trying to be the person to facilitate this with the student teacher is a real challenge, right? So I took some pictures while I was there, and I happened to have him on my WhatsApp. We communicate, and I wanted to give him, thank you so much for letting me visit today. And I said, it's clear that you've established yourself as an authority in the classroom.
Yeah, say the positive things first.
Right? So so I said a lot of the positive things first. But so what I started to realize, which is a challenge for someone who's trying to mentor and coach a teacher like that, how do you, a brand new student teacher that I have a trust with outside the classroom, okay? But how would you expose this teacher to the idea that there's a different way that we can honor student voice?
I wouldn't go directly to that. I would do what you just did with me. I would ask him what is his opinion about introducing some extra curriculum topic in a class without being prepared for it.
Okay.
So I would hear his thoughts on that. And then I would ask him if he has ever had that chance.
Mm-hmm.
If he ever felt that. And I would ask him also to review the class today and to think if he saw a missed opportunity. If he can name a missed opportunity on the class today. So I would go through this,
Yeah, but even naming a missed opportunity, okay, is still pointing in the direction. And what I found myself as someone who was trying to mentor, trying to give some, I was struggling myself to find the reflective questions to help him reflect. So, you know, when you do the lesson study, you look at the students, you know, and what the students learn. And so he was happy with the comments that the students that they wrote on the paper, okay? He felt like he had met some of his learning outcomes. But how do you help someone who's a brand new teacher who, yes, we're happy that he met those outcomes that he established, but walking that line between your learning outcomes and the student, you know, learning outcomes is, and you know, you brought up something that's interesting is you said the feeling you have and the juice that you want to encourage, right? So
I think he needs to do the opposite. So he's focusing in his objectives and what are his goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
He needs to sit in the student's chair and see that same lesson on the perspective of the student. So it starts when the student gets in the class and is in the group. Well, was he aware of the buzz?
So if you being that new student, so I would say, let's try to role play this a little bit, because I think you can maybe help me find these questions, okay? So first, Cristina, thank you so much for letting me drop in today. I know that you weren't expecting me, and it really is such a pleasure for me to be here. It was clear that you were the authority in the classroom, and the students really accepted you. And the fact that you have only been 2 weeks into this school, you know, that really is an accomplishment. And so I just know that I noticed that. And if you have time right now, I'd love to share with you some other things that I noticed, and maybe have a guided reflection or conversation. How does that sound to you?
That sounds perfect to me, Miss Shannon. I really would like to have another perspective about my work with students. I agree with you. I think really I conquered already the authoritative space, but I wouldn't like to be just the authoritative teacher, or the one that has the ultimate voice in the classroom. So I think your help would be very appreciated for me to learn how to guide less the students and be also more guided by them.
Well,
I think you can help me with that.
So that's amazing that you have that as a goal. And I would say that when I talk to other teachers who have that as a goal, it seems like it takes a while to cultivate that. So I would say, you know, we both need to be patient with how we cultivate that student voice and curiosity. Because you're right. I mean, you want to have some structure to your class. You know,
think, if you don't mind me saying, I think while I'm in class, if I need to feel that I'm in control of the class, and having my voice being heard helps me more to be in control, you know. So I think I fear somehow when I give total voice to students that I don't know how to create a healthy debate in the class without the class escaping from my hands.
Wow, that's beautifully said. Beautifully said. You know, there are some different people that I have personally worked with that say that it's great to create certain markers in your class for control. So either standing in a certain place in the classroom, and every single time you want to come back, but basically starting with a procedure. So it does help for you to have some procedure that lets students know you're about ready to enter this zone of high volume and activity. But when there's a signal, either a hand rise, standing in a part of the room, or when I say, excuse me, class, can I have you back, right? But there does, if you can have those little signals and practice them, introduce them and practice them, then you are able to keep that environment. And one of my favorite things to do in the drama classroom is I actually had people move in a space. So I had everyone stand up, spread around in a space, equal distance from each other. This was before COVID, and actually moving about the space with a low level of energy without touching each other, okay? And not even looking at each other. And then I would say, okay, so now we're going to move up to a level 2 energy. And a level 2 energy is you're kind of looking, but you're moving about the space and you're not talking. Okay, moving up to level 3, 4, and 5. And 5 is a very high level frenetic energy moving around in the space. But either I would clap my hands or I would say, can I have your attention, please? And then I would have them freeze. Okay, and then I would go to a 1 level, a 3 level, a 5 level, and it seems like no matter what age of students I had,
Yep.
even adults, right?
Yeah.
You need some kind of cue. What is the cue that we're starting and that we can come back?
I mean, my cue is I raise my hand and I stay completely quiet and still. And when I do that, immediately they know I'm wanting their full attention and to be quiet and focus on me. So it has always worked because they somehow they feel that is not out of respect for them, not out of respect. It is to respect them and to help them create the right environment for a healthy discussion. Other times I establish with them concise minutes or a time frame for each to have and expose their opinions. But sometimes I am afraid if, let's say, 2 students have opposite opinions about the topic, and I don't know how to bridge that, and they can, create an unhealthy situation in the classroom because they are not quite aware of how to do a debate. And so that also worries me.
I get it. So one, you're looking at what concerns you is just the volume and control of the classroom. But then you also have another concern, which is, wow, I have this diverse group of students. What if they bring up some personal thoughts or feelings and I don't know how to bridge them? I think is the word that you said. Right. So I think probably experienced teachers have the same concern. But I think you gave a little bit of an insight, as you said in the beginning of this, which is you try to say, okay, I'm going to step into this conversation with you, and I'm just going to be a person and share my opinion. And so right now, we need to maybe have some guidelines. If we're going to have this discussion, we're all going to agree that we're not going to put each other's opinions down. We're not going to personally criticize someone. So it helps if the community
needs to know the rules.
For having an open discussion. Yeah. Yeah. So there are some basic tools that would be helpful to have. And I don't know, honestly, if the mentor teacher was also modeling these things prior, because what I think is that there was the mentor teacher, and the teacher has been teaching, the student teacher, you have been teaching right away. So it can be that I have found that every teacher has their own kind of way and style of managing this. And as a student teacher, you're trying to create your own style,
Yeah.
at the same time trying to recognize the style
Yeah.
of the teacher before.
And when you're beginning, when you're in the, I remember when I was in the beginning of my career, I wasn't even aware of what was my style. So I was stepping different stones because I needed to get perspective and experience in each style, right? And then with time, my experience, I could see that I would easily go to a more um, constructive style of class. So I think they need time to find out
Their
who they are,
style.
but they need to try the different styles in order to choose the one that makes this alignment between mind and heart. Because I remember the worst thing that happened to me in the beginning of my career was I tried to follow my mind all the time. So my brain was always there. I knew the lesson by heart, right? But it was not with my heart as an organ. It was just, I studied the subjects. I could, quote all the things about that. And I was so strict with rules with students. I wouldn't allow something to get off the
Track.
table or track. It was my anxious need for control. I was really, I wanted to be in control because I thought that was the first job of a teacher. But then as time went by and I started to connect, which when you're an authoritative teacher, you don't connect. You're focused in doing a role, but you don't really connect with the momentary doubts of the students, and you don't connect with the curiosity of the moment, which is, I think, something very important to construct a class, or even to, you can connect with the momentary curiosity and bring it to where is your lesson plan. So I started to enjoy the surprises of the moment, the surprises of the students' knowledge or doubts or questions. And it brought me to another level. And in the beginning of my career, I would go to a classroom ready to answer all the questions and to make them answer all the questions. Right now, I always tell my students, are you waiting for me to tell you the answers for your questions? No, sir, I'm here to bring more questions to you. And I bring more questions into the classroom and into the table. So it is a construction, but I learned by myself. I had to learn by myself, right? If I had somebody who could inspire me or mentor me into this direction, it would be, I don't think, I know, I am sure my potential would be very higher at much sooner.
See, isn't that interesting, right? Because I remember the first person I met who encouraged using the teachable moment. And, until then, I kind of snuck it. I was secretive about it because you're following your curriculum. But then it's like, I remember we were going on a field trip and I was walking students to a museum, and it was in this small town that I was in. And one student came alongside of me and she was talking about pregnancy. And she wanted, and I mean, these were junior high school students. And I found myself getting into a conversation that was walking this line. And afterwards, I thought, oh, I wish I hadn't had that conversation, because I'd actually personally said, if I was in this situation, or this is a personal situation. But the student was really kind of asking for advice. And so as a teacher, you're making that decision, and it's really kind of risky. But so you stay on the track, and knowing when to go off the track, to listen to a student, to be available for the juicy relative conversations. I don't know how we can foster that. So that's my objective as well. So I had that learning today. So I came into the classroom and I thought, wow, this is hard for me to try to figure out, how can I foster that in this teacher? How can I at the same time really recognize all the great thing he's doing, and at the same time do this? What are the right questions to ask? And I found myself really stumped.
Well, maybe you can challenge him to create an activity where the interests of the students will be met.
So I left him with I tried to really recognize the great things I saw. And then I said, which I'm not sure that I should have said it this way, but I said, if I was your supervisor, I would say your next step is to really see how to support student voice and curiosity in the curriculum.
So this is something, yeah.
But that, I still don't feel like that really recognizes his process and his path enough. I still felt like I was kind of imposing my advice. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. I would rather be able to ask the right question to get him to that place of understanding. And maybe that's an unrealistic expectation. Maybe that's for not coaching teachers. I don't know. I think you started with a very interesting comment from the very beginning. You said you wanted to know more about creating a different type of environment. Okay, so from the very beginning, I just said, hey, if there's some time that we can talk, I'd love to debrief with you or talk more with you. And I think, the fact that you said, yes, I'm interested, this is what I want to create. Now, if you had kind of started breathing very high, if you were stressed by my comment, would you like to talk sometime? Then I think I would just leave it. Right?
Yeah.
And this is hard, because really, how do we change teacher education? How do we share ideas that teacher education might recognize voice more, might recognize inquiry more?
You can also do something interesting. You can put them in contact with teachers with more experience. Just a talk like we had now. And the topic can be so simple as this. How do you find yourself different in teaching from the beginning of your career till now?
So have you ever seen a video like that?
No. It just came now to my mind because of this that
conversation.
Yeah.
So if part of a teacher training program, we had little video clips.
From teachers with more experience, that have been in the career for a few years, let's say more than 10. I would say more than 10. And what have they learned from since the beginning till now? what are their perspectives about, oh, not about government policies, not these things, just the moment you were in the classroom.
Wow, isn't this really interesting? We could interview each of the members of Visionary Ed.
Yeah.
You know, if you, as a veteran teacher of 10 years or more experience, how do you think you changed?
Exactly.
And or how do you think you grew or were better? So I wouldn't say you've become cranky and desperate and angry. Okay, so it's not
No,
that you've changed for the negative.
with teachers that love teaching, right?
Mm-hmm,
None of
mm-hmm,
us, well, we had our disappointments, so obviously we did.
mm-hmm,
We have to, because it's a love relationship, right?
mm-hmm,
So, and when you're in a love relationship, you also have your disappointments. I
mm-hmm.
had mine, and I still have mine, and I'm working on mine. But I also have the things that made me be more in love with the profession, and I think that's valuable to share with.
Thank you so much, Christina.